The healthcare system that you're saying sucks is Obamacare. We told you this would happen.
Shit. She got us, you guys. How do we put this in terms that they can understand? Let's say you are in a critical thinking class and you're obviously failing it. Then in the fourth quarter of the class, you do a little bit of extra credit and you improve your grade from an F to a D. You get your report card at the end of the year and the teacher says you got a D. And you go, I should have never done that extra credit. You don't blame the little improvement for the reason why it's bad in the first place. Obamacare is a set of pretty basic regulations. It is not a healthcare system. Obamacare just said no more pre-existing conditions clauses. It said you can't charge people more because of their genitalia. It said no more policy maximums, which says that the policy doesn't have to pay anymore if you're too sick, along with a couple of other very basic regulations that made it so that people couldn't just be denied coverage because they were unlucky. And they balanced that out with a requirement that everybody has to be covered. It's the only way that insurance can actually work. Now, I know whiny McDrunky Pants turned this video off like 45 seconds ago, but in the off chance that any other MAGAs are still here, congratulations, I love you, and I hope you have access to healthcare.
Trump's tax plan explained. Here's a coffee I paid $10 for. The coffee shop imported their coffee from abroad, and let's say the cost of making this cup was $5. Trump wants to instate a tax on imports that U.S. companies, not foreign companies, would pay for. Now the coffee shop is paying this new tax, now making this coffee cost $8 instead of $5. Do you think they'll keep charging $10 for this? So now your $10 comfort drink costs $15, but you will be the one paying the price. Easy, I'll just buy coffee locally. Well, here's the catch. Your local coffee shop is going to see others charging $15 for coffee, and then they'll think, wait, if they can charge $15 for coffee, then I can charge $15 for coffee. And suddenly $50 for coffee is the new norm. Why is Trump doing it? Because he says that the taxes will force U.S. companies to buy supplies from the U.S. and hire people in the U.S. But if people are paying $15 for coffee instead of $10, they're going to require more money. And if companies are going to pay people more money, they need to be bringing in more money, aka making things more expensive.
Nobody talks about how crazy it was when Trump won presidency.
When Trump won the presidency in 2016, I was very concerned, and most of my concerns did not really come to fruition until about 2020 and 2021, because that's pretty typical. Usually what a president does in their first term does not manifest until usually the end of that term or the beginning of the next term. And we're kind of seeing that as Trump basically increased the deficit by a great deal. He also brought forth many tax cuts, which ultimately led to a greater division between the wealthy and the poor, and several other things I'd rather not get into because this is more about the social side of things. It was genuinely concerning to see what people were saying. Like, on a minor level, people were saying, oh, you should run the government like a business, which to me sounded like a terrible idea. I've never liked the idea of running a government like a business because the government is for the people and businesses are for profit. And when you run a government for profit, well, you hurt the people as a result. And there were also people who would say more major things that were concerning. People who would say, oh, he's not a racist. He doesn't mean what he's saying when he says racist things. And then in the next sentence, they would say, well, I like Trump because he says it like it is. And it was just a complete lack of mental work towards what he was actually saying. And simply just, I like him because he's funny. Or I like him because he says things that I want to hear, as opposed to saying what needs to be said or providing actual substance. Because Trump's campaign back then was incredibly light on substance. It was mostly simple solutions like building a wall and having Mexico pay for it to fix immigration. When you're ruling over a country of 350 million people, there are no simple solutions. Everything you do has ramifications, whether you intend it to or not. Another concern of mine was the influence Trump had based off of his leadership style. Trump's rhetoric is incredibly ham-fisted, it's crude, it's blunt, and it's not how you lead a country that's so big and diverse. You had people who were begrudgingly voting for Trump, and later in 2020, they became more emphatically in support of him. You had people who voted for Trump because they liked the way that he insulted people they didn't like. I had someone who said they voted for Trump because he was a Presbyterian. And Trump is not a practicing Christian. He's not a practicing Christian if he boasts about the women that he's violated. Trump also emboldened anti-intellectualists as well as conspiracy theories, especially anti-vaxxers. Like in 2016, the anti-vax movement in the United States was largely people in the Pacific Northwest who just didn't trust modern medicine and preferred more spiritual or holistic means. However, by current year 2024, a great deal of anti-vaxxers are right-wing religious Republicans. My concerns eventually came to fruition basically by January 6th, and not immediately, but a lot of them were realized. My concern for a rise in anti-intellectualism, because Trump is incredibly visual. If work is not visibly entertaining to him, he often does not consider it to be worthwhile or valuable. He disrespects a great deal of people who provide a great deal of research and development towards medicine and several other fields that he doesn't understand. His rhetoric about basically being the tough guy in the room has emboldened a great deal of people to take on incredibly hateful rhetoric in order to hide their own insecurities. My other concerns also came to fruition. The idea that he would not be an effective president because he didn't know how to be a president was true. He was incredibly ineffective when he had both houses of the Congress. His greatest achievements were largely just appointing Supreme Court judges. He was incredibly ineffective when it came to uniting the country. He could not really focus on more than one thing at a time. He couldn't delegate. He had to be there in the press conference room a lot in order to talk to the press that he despised so much, instead of focusing his time on things that really mattered behind the scenes. So when Trump was elected in 2016, the most difficult part wasn't necessarily the fact that people had different beliefs than I did. It was how they arrived at those conclusions. Because we can differ on beliefs, we can disagree. But if your disagreement is rooted in, this is what's comfortable for me, this is what's easy for me, this is what I want other people to feel as miserable as me, which were what people were actually saying when they voted for and voiced support for Trump, that is what was so difficult to see. Because if you do any type of mental labor, you'll realize that Trump is not a good president to have. He's not a good president to vote for. And people who don't do the mental work don't arrive at that conclusion. And to be surrounded by so many people who don't want to do that work, not even that they haven't done it, that they actively refuse to learn any more about the world around them, that is very concerning.
Trump's tariffs will make everything more expensive, and it'll make inflation run out of control. I understand on the surface level why you would think that, but it's actually false. And let me give you an example of this. In the 1980s, we had so many vehicles being imported into the United States, it became a problem. And it became so much of a problem that the White House said, hey, we're going to put tariffs and we're going to limit how many vehicles you can bring into the United States. Toyota, which is a big brand we all know, their response to this was, hey, I'm going to partner with GM and we're going to make an alliance and we're going to start manufacturing within the United States so we can avoid these rules. That's what we want companies to do. Instead of companies taking their manufacturing outside of the United States to save money, we want them to say, hey, that doesn't work. And we want them to create thousands of jobs, thousands of pensions. And we want them to create a good, solid product that everyone can afford within the United States. So tariffs on the surface level, I get they can sound scary, but if you actually go look at the history of tariffs and what they do, they create jobs for everyone, and we want to make America's manufacturing the powerhouse of the world again. Tariffs can be a very good thing.
Elon Musk has now wedged himself right in the middle of the Trump transition team, and everyone is starting to wonder if the world's richest man is now, I don't know, calling the shots instead of the 78-year-old lame duck president that is Donald Trump. Republican Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez said it in an interview today that it feels like Elon Musk is our prime minister. And a clear sign that this idea that Musk is the boss is getting under his skin. Trump told an audience of conservative activists today in Phoenix that he is in charge and that he will stay in charge based on a technicality.
The new one is President Trump has ceded the presidency to Elon Musk. No, that's not happening. But Elon's done an amazing job. Isn't it nice to have smart people that we can rely on? So we want to thank him. But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe. You know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country.